Brought to you by WikiVidi.com. Depeche Mode. Depeche Mode are an English electronic band that formed in Basildon, Essex in 1980. The group consists of founders Dave Gahan, Martin Gore and Andy Fletcher. Depeche Mode released their debut album Speak, bringing the band onto the British new wave scene. Original band member Vince Clarke left the band after the release of the album, leaving the band as a trio to record A Broken Frame, released the following year. Gore took over the lead songwriting duties, and later in 1982, Alan Wilder officially joined the band to fill Clarke's spot, establishing a lineup that would continue for the next 13 years. Depeche Mode have been a trio again since 1995 when Wilder left. The band's last albums of the 1980s, Black Celebration and Music for the Masses, established them as a dominant force on the mainstream electronic music scene. The highlight of this era was the band's 1988 concert at the Pasadena Rose Bowl, where they drew a crowd in excess of 60,000 people. In the new decade, Depeche Mode released Violator, a mainstream success. The subsequent album Songs of Faith and Devotion and the supporting devotional tour exacerbated tensions within the band to the point where Alan Wilder quit in 1995, leading to intense media and fan speculation that the band would split. Now a trio once again, the band released Ultra in 1997, recorded at the height of Gahan's near-fatal drug abuse, Gore's alcoholism and seizures, and Fletcher's depression. The release of Exciter confirmed Depeche Mode's willingness to remain together. The subsequent and very successful Exciter tour being their first tour in support of an original album in 8 years since the devotional tour, although the band had toured in 1998 to support the singles 86-98 compilation album. Depeche Mode have had 50 songs in the UK singles chart and 17 top 10 albums in the UK chart. They have sold over 100 million records worldwide. Q included the band in the list of the 50 bands that changed the world. Depeche Mode also ranked number 98 on VH1's 100 Greatest Artists of All Time. In December 2016, Billboard magazine named Depeche Mode the 10th most successful dance club artist of all time. In October 2017 it was announced Depeche Mode will be nominated into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2018. Formation and debut album, 1977-1981. Depeche Mode's origins date to 1977, when schoolmates Vince Clarke and Andy Fletcher formed a Cure-influenced band called No Romance in China, with Clarke on vocals and guitar and Fletcher on bass. Fletcher would later recall, "Why am I in the band? It was accidental right from the beginning. I was actually forced to be in the band. I played the guitar and I had a bass. It was a question of them roping me in." In 1979, Clarke played guitar in an Ultravox rip-off band The Plan with friends Robert Marlowe and Paul Langworth. In 1978-79, Martin Gore played guitar in an acoustic duo Norman and the Worms, with school friend Phil Burdett on vocals. In 1979, Marlowe, Gore and friend Paul Redman formed a band called The French Look, with Marlowe on vocals, keyboards, Gore on guitar and Redmond on keyboards. In March 1980, Clarke, Gore and Fletcher formed a band called Composition of Sound, with Clarke on vocals, guitar, Gore on keyboards and Fletcher on bass. Soon after the formation of Composition of Sound, Clarke heard Wirral Band orchestral maneuvers in the dark, whose output inspired him to make electronic music. Along with MD, other early influences included The Human League, Daniel Miller and Fad Gadget. Clarke and Fletcher switched to synthesizers, working odd jobs in order to buy or borrow the instruments from friends. Dave Gahan joined the band in 1980 after Clarke heard him perform at a local Scout Hut jam session, singing a rendition of David Bowie's Heroes and Depeche Mode were born. Gahan's and Gore's favorite artists included Sparks Siouxsie and the Banshees, Cabaret Voltaire, Talking Heads and Iggy Pop. When explaining the choice for the new name taken from French fashion magazine Depeche Mode, Gore said it means hurried fashion or fashion dispatch. I like the sound of that. However, the magazine's name is Fashion News or Fashion Update. Gore recalled that the first time the band played as Depeche Mode was a school gig in May 1980. There is a plaque commemorating the gig at the James Hornsby School in Basildon where Gore and Fletcher were pupils. The band made their recording debut in 1980 on the Some Bizarre album, with the song Photographic later re-recorded for their debut album Speak. The band made a demo tape, but instead of mailing the tape to record companies, they would go in and personally deliver it. They would demand the companies play it, according to Dave Gahan. Most of them would tell us to fuck off. They'd say, leave the tape with yous, and would say, it's our only one. Then would say goodbye and go somewhere else. According to Gahan, prior to securing their record contract, they were receiving offers from all the major labels. Phonogram offered them money you could never have imagined, and all sorts of crazy things like clothes allowances. While playing a live gig at the Bridge House in Canning Town, the band were approached by Daniel Miller, an electronic musician and founder of Mute Records, who was interested in recording a single for his burgeoning label. The result of this verbal contract was their first single, Dreaming of Me, recorded in December 1980 and released in February 1981. It reached number 57 in the UK charts. Encouraged by this, the band recorded their second single, New Life, which climbed to number 11 in the UK charts and got them an appearance on Top of the Pops. The band went to London by train, carrying their synthesizers all the way to the BBC studios. The band's next single was Just Can't Get Enough. This relentlessly upbeat piece of synth-pop became the band's first UK top 10 hit, and it was also the first Depeche Mode song to get a music video, and is the only one of the band's videos to feature Vince Clarke. Depeche Mode's debut album, Speak. Critical reviews were mixed. Melody Maker described it as a great album, one they had to make to conquer fresh audiences and please the fans who just can't get enough, while Rolling Stone was more critical, calling the album PG-rated fluff. Clarke departs, Wilder joins, 1981-1982. During the touring and promotion for Speak, at the direction the band was taking, he later expressed his dissatisfaction, saying, "There was never enough time to do anything. Not with all the interviews and photo sessions." In November 1981, Clarke publicly announced that he was leaving Depeche Mode. It was also claimed that Clarke was sick of touring, which Gahan said years later was bullshit. To be quite honest, Gahan went on to say he suddenly lost interest in it, and he started getting letters from fans asking what kind of socks he wore. Soon afterwards, Clarke joined up with blues singer Alison Moyet to form Yazoo. Initial talk of Clarke's continuing to write material for Depeche Mode ultimately amounted to nothing. According to third-party sources, Clarke offered the remaining members of Depeche Mode the track Only You, but they declined. Clarke, however, denied in an interview that such an offer ever took place, saying, "I don't know where that came from. That's not true." The song went on to become a UK top 3 hit for Yazoo. Gore, who had written Tora, 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 and the instrumental Big Muff for Speak, the band placed an anonymous ad in Melody Maker looking for another musician. Name band. Synthesize must be under 21. Alan Wilder, a keyboardist from West London, responded and, after 2 auditions and despite being 22 years old, was hired in early 1982. Initially on a trial basis as a touring member, Wilder would later be called the musical director of the band, responsible for the band's sound until his departure in 1995. As producer Flood would say, Alan is sort of the craftsman, Martin's the idea man, and Dave is the attitude. In January 1982, the band released "See You", their first single without Clarke, which managed to beat all 3 Clarke-penned singles in the UK charts, reaching number 6. The following tour saw the band playing their first shows in North America. 2 more singles, "The Meaning of Love" and "Leave in Silence", were released ahead of the band's second studio album, on which they began work in July 1982. Daniel Miller informed Wilder that he was not needed for the recording of the album, as the core trio wanted to prove they could succeed without Vince Clarke. A Broken Frame was released that September, and the following month the band began their 1982 tour. A non-album single, "Get the Balance Right", was released in January 1983, the first Depeche Mode track to be recorded with Wilder. Construction Time Again, 1983. For their third OLP, Construction Time Again, Depeche Mode worked with producer Gareth Jones at John Fox Garden Studios and at Hansa Studios in West Berlin. The album saw a dramatic shift in the group's sound due in part to Wilder's introduction of the synclavier and EMU emulator samplers. By sampling the noises of everyday objects, the band created an eclectic, industrial-influenced sound with similarities to groups such as The Art of Noise and Einstürzen Neubauten. Along with the music, Gore's songwriting was also rapidly evolving, focusing increasingly on political and social issues. A good example of the new sound was on the first single from the album, "Everything Counts", a commentary on the perceived greed of multinational corporations. In a retrospective review of the single, AllMusic journalist Ned Raggett wrote that the song marked a change in the band, with Martin Gore's songwriting abilities matched with an increasing ambition of the band as a whole. Everything Counts rose to number 6 in the UK, also reaching the top 30 in Ireland, South Africa, Switzerland, Sweden, and West Germany. Wilder contributed 2 songs to the album, "The Landscape is Changing" and "2-Minute Warning", in September 1983 to promote Construction Time Again. The band launched a European concert tour. Some Great Reward and growing international success, 1984-1985. In their early years, Depeche Mode had only really attained success in Europe and Australia. This changed in March 1984 when they released the single "People Are People". The song became a hit, reaching number 2 in Ireland and Poland, number 4 in the UK and Switzerland, and number 1 in West Germany, the first time a EDM single topped a country's singles chart, where it was used as the theme to West German TV's coverage of the 1984 Olympics. Beyond this European success, the song also reached number 13 on the US charts in mid-1985. The first appearance of a EDM single on the Billboard Hot 100 and was a top 20 hit in Canada. "People Are People" has since become an anthem for the LGBT community, regularly played at gay establishments and gay pride festivals in the late 1980s. Sire, the band's North American record label, released a compilation of the same name which included tracks from A Broken Frame and Construction Time Again, as well as several B-sides. On the American tour, the band was, according to Gore, shocked by the way the fans were turning up in droves at the concerts. He said that although the concerts were selling well, Depeche Mode struggled to sell records. In September 1984, Some Great Reward was released. Melody Maker claimed that the album made one sit up and take notice of what is happening here right under your nose. In contrast to the political and environmental subjects addressed on the previous album, the songs on Some Great Reward were mostly concerned with more personal themes such as sexual politics, adulterous relationships, and arbitrary divine justice. Also included was the first Martin Gore ballad, Somebody. Such songs would become a feature of all following albums. Somebody was released as a double A-side with Blasphemous Rumors and was the first single with Gore on lead vocal. Some Great Reward became the first Depeche Mode album to enter the US album charts and made the top 10 in several European countries. The World We Live In and Live in Hamburg was the band's first video release. Almost an entire concert from their 1984 Some Great Reward tour. In July 1985, the band played their first ever concerts behind the Iron Curtain in Budapest and Warsaw. In October 1985, Mute Records released a compilation, The Singles 81-85, which included the two non-album hit singles Shake the Disease and It's Called a Heart. During this period the band became associated with the goth subculture, which had begun in Britain in the early 1980s, and was slowly gaining popularity in the United States. There, the band's music had first gained prominence on college radio and modern rock stations such as KROQ in Los Angeles, KSOL in San Francisco, WFNX in Boston, and WLIR on Long Island, New York, and hence they appealed primarily to an alternative audience who were disenfranchised with the predominance of soft rock and disco hell on the radio. This view of the band was in sharp contrast to how the band was perceived in Europe despite the increasingly dark and serious tone in their songs. In Germany, France and other European countries, Depeche Mode were considered teen idols and regularly featured in European teen magazines, becoming one of the most famous synth-pop bands in the mid-80s. Black Celebration, 1986. Depeche Mode's musical style shifted slightly again in 1986, with the release of their 15th single Stripped and its accompanying album Black Celebration, retaining their often imaginative sampling and beginning to move away from the industrial pop sound that had characterized their previous two LPs. The band introduced an ominous, highly atmospheric and textured sound. Gore's lyrics also took on a darker tone, and became even more pessimistic. The music video for A Question of Time was the first to be directed by Anton Corbijn, beginning a working relationship that continues to the present day. Corbijn has directed a further 20 of the band's videos. He has also filmed some of the live performances and designed stage sets, as well as covers for albums and singles. Music for the Masses and 101, 1987, 1988. 1987's Music for the Masses saw further alterations in the band's sound and working methods. For the first time, a producer not related to Mute Records, Dave Baskin, was called to assist with the recording sessions, although according to Alan Wilder, Bascom's role ended up being more that of engineer. In making the album, the band largely eschewed sampling in favor of synthesizer experimentation, while chart performance of the singles Strange Love, Never Let Me Down Again and Behind the Wheel proved to be disappointing in the UK. They performed well in countries such as Canada, Brazil, West Germany, South Africa, Sweden, and Switzerland, often reaching the top 10. Record Mirror described Music for the Masses as the most accomplished and sexy Mode album to date. The album also made a breakthrough in the American market. The Music for the Masses tour began the 22nd of October 1987. On the 7th of March 1988, With no previous announcement that they would be the headlining act, Depeche Mode played in the Werner Seelenbinder-Halle East Berlin, becoming one of the few Western groups to perform in the communist East Germany. They also performed concerts in Budapest and Prague in 1988, both at the time also communist. The world tour ended the 18th of June 1988 with a concert at the Pasadena Rose Bowl, with paid attendance of 60,453, the highest in 8 years for the venue. The tour was a breakthrough for the band and a massive success in the United States. It was documented in 101, a concert film by D.A. Pennebaker, and its accompanying soundtrack album. The film is notable for its portrayal of fan interaction. Alan Wilder is credited with coming up with the title, noting that the performance was the 101st and final performance of the tour. On the 7th of September 1988, Depeche Mode performed Strange Love at the 1988 and MTV Video Music Awards at the Universal Amphitheater in Los Angeles. Violator and Worldwide Fame, 1989-1991. In mid-1989, the band began recording in Milan with producer Flood and engineer François Kevorkian. The initial result of this session was the single, Personal Jesus. Prior to its release, a marketing campaign was launched, with advertisements placed in the Personals columns of UK regional newspapers with the words, "Your own personal Jesus." Later, the ads included a phone number one could dial to hear the song. The resulting furore helped propel the single to number 13 on the UK charts, becoming one of their biggest sellers to date. In the United States, it was their first gold single, and their first top 40 hit since People Are People, eventually becoming the biggest-selling 12-inch single in Warner Records history. Up to that point. Released in January 1990, Enjoy the Silence reached number 6 in the UK. A few months later in the US, it reached number 8 and earned the band a second gold single. It won Best British Single at the 1991 Brit Awards. To promote their new album Violator, the band held an in-store autograph signing at Warehouse Entertainment in Los Angeles. The event attracted approximately 20,000 fans and turned into a near riot. Some who attended were injured by being pressed against the store's glass by the crowd. As an apology to the fans who were injured, the band released a limited edition cassette tape to fans living in Los Angeles, distributed through radio station KROQ. Violator was the first Depeche Mode album to enter the top 10 of the Billboard 200. Reaching number 7 and staying 74 weeks in the chart. It was certified triple platinum in America, selling over 4.5 million units there. It remains the band's best-selling album worldwide. Two more singles from the album, Policy of Truth and World in My Eyes, were hits in the UK, with the former also charting in the US. The World Violation Tour saw the band play several stadium shows in the US. 42,000 tickets were sold within 4 hours for a show at Giant Stadium, and 48,000 tickets were sold within half an hour of going on sale for a show at Dodger Stadium. An estimated 1.2 million fans saw this tour worldwide. In 1991, Depeche Mode contribution, Death's Door, was released on the soundtrack album for the film Until the End of the World. Film director Wim Wenders had challenged musical artists to write music the way they imagined they would in the year 2000, the setting of the movie. Songs of Faith and Devotion and Wilders' Departure, 1992-1996. The members of Depeche Mode regrouped in Madrid in January 1992. Dave Gahan had become interested in the new grunge scene sweeping the US and was influenced by the likes of Jane's Addiction, Soundgarden and Nirvana. In 1993, Songs of Faith and Devotion, again with Flood producing, saw them experimenting with more organic arrangements, based as much on heavily distorted electric guitars and live drums as on synthesizers. Live strings, uilleann pipes and female gospel vocals were other new additions to the band's sound. The album debuted at number 1 in both the UK and the US, only the sixth British act to achieve such a distinction to date. The first single from the album was the grunge-influenced I Feel You. The gospel influences are most noticeable on the album's third single, Condemnation, a symptom of the slow fracturing of the band. Interviews given by the band during this period tended to be conducted separately, unlike earlier albums, where the band was interviewed as a group. The Devotional World Tour followed, documented by a concept film of the same name. The film was directed by Anton Corbijn, and in 1995 earned the band their first Grammy nomination. The band's second live album, Songs of Faith and Devotion Live, was released in December 1993. The tour continued into 1994, with the Exotic Tour, which began in February 1994 in South Africa and ended in April in Mexico. The final leg of the tour, consisting of more North American dates, followed shortly thereafter, and ran until July. As a whole, the Devotional Tour is to date the longest and most geographically diverse Depeche Mode tour, spanning 14 months and 159 individual performances. Q magazine described the 1993 Devotional Tour as the most debauched rock and roll tour ever. Dave Gahan's heroin addiction was increasingly affecting his behavior, causing him to become more erratic and introverted. Martin Gore experienced seizures, and Andy Fletcher declined to participate in the second half of the Exotic Tour due to mental instability. During that period, he was replaced on stage by Daryl Bamonte, who had worked with the band as a personal assistant for many years. In June 1995, Alan Wilder announced that he was leaving Depeche Mode, explaining he continued to work on his personal project Recoil, releasing a fourth album in 1997. Following Wilders' departure, many were skeptical of whether Depeche Mode would ever record again. Gahan's mental state and drug habit became a major source of concern, with a near-fatal overdose at a hotel in Los Angeles. Ultra, 1997-2000. Despite Gahan's increasingly severe personal problems, Gore tried repeatedly during 1995 and 1996 to get the band recording again. However, Gahan would rarely turn up to scheduled sessions, and when he did, it would take weeks to get any vocals recorded. One 6-week session at Electric Lady in New York produced just one usable vocal, and even that was pieced together from multiple takes. Gore was forced to contemplate breaking the band up, and considered releasing the songs he had written as a solo album. In mid-1996, after his near-fatal overdose, Gahan entered a court-ordered drug rehabilitation program to battle his addiction to cocaine and heroin. With Gahan out of rehab in 1996, Depeche Mode held recording sessions with producer Tim Simonon, preceded by 2 singles. Barrel of a Gun and It's No Good. The album Ultra was released in April 1997. The album debuted at number 1 in the UK and number 5 in the US. The band did not tour in support of the album, with Fletcher quoted as saying as part of the promotion for the release of the album, they did perform 2 short concerts in London and Los Angeles called Ultra Parties. Ultra spawned 2 further singles, Home and Useless, a second singles compilation. The singles 86-98 was released in 1998, preceded by the new single Only When I Lose Myself, which had been recorded during the Ultra sessions. In April 1998, Depeche Mode held a press conference at the Hyatt Hotel in Cologne to announce the singles tour. The tour was the first to feature 2 backing musicians in place of Alan Wilder, Austrian drummer Christian Enner, and British keyboardist Peter Gaudino. Exciter, 2001-2004. In 2001, Depeche Mode released Exciter, produced by Mark Bell. Bell introduced a minimalist, digital sound to much of the album, influenced by IDM and glitch. Dream On, I Feel Loved, Free Love and Good Night Lovers were released as singles in 2001 and 2002. Critical response to the album was mixed, with reasonably positive reviews from some magazines, while others derided it as sounding underproduced, dull and lackluster. In March 2001, Depeche Mode held a press conference at the Valentino Hotel in Hamburg to announce the Exciter Tour. The tour featured 84 performances for over 1.5 million fans in 24 countries. The concerts held in Paris, at the Palais Omnisports de Paris Bercy, were filmed and later released in May 2002 as a live DVD entitled One Night in Paris. In October 2002, the band won the first ever Q Magazine Innovation Award. In 2003, Gahan released his first solo album, Paper Monsters, and toured to promote the record. Also released in 2003 was Gore's second solo album, Counterfeit Squared. Fletcher founded his own record label, Toast Hawaii, specializing in promoting electronic music. A new remix compilation album, Remixes 8104, was released in 2004 featuring new and unreleased promo mixes of the band's singles from 1981 to 2004. A new version of Enjoy the Silence, remixed by Mike Shinoda of Linkin Park, Enjoy the Silence 04, was released as a single and reached number 7 on the UK charts. Playing the Angel, 2005-2007. In October 2005, the band released their 11th studio album, Playing the Angel. Produced by Ben Hillier, the album peaked at number 1 in 18 countries and featured the hit single, Precious. This is the first Depeche Mode album to feature lyrics written by Gahan and, consequently, the first album since 1984's Some Great Reward featuring songs not written by Gore. Suffer Well was the first ever post-Clarke Depeche Mode single not to be written by Gore. The final single from the album was John the Revelator, an up-tempo electronic track with a running religious theme accompanied by Lillian, a lush track that was a hit in many clubs all over the world. To promote Playing the Angel, the band launched Touring the Angel, a concert tour of Europe and North America that began in November 2005 and ran for 9 months. During the last 2 legs of the tour, Depeche Mode headlined a number of festivals, including the Coachella Valley Music and Arts Festival and the O2 Wireless Festival. In total, the band played to more than 2.8 million people across 31 countries, and the tour was one of the highest-grossing and critically acclaimed tours of 2005-06. Speaking about the tour, Gahan praised it as probably the most enjoyable, rewarding live shows we've ever done. The new material was just waiting to be played live. It took on a life of its own. With the energy of the crowds, it just came to life. 2 shows at Milan's Fila Forum were filmed and edited into a concert film released on DVD as Touring the Angel, Live in Milan. A best-of compilation was released in November 2006 entitled The Best of Volume 1, featuring a new single, Martyr, an outtake from the Playing the Angel sessions. Later that month, Depeche Mode received the MTV Europe Music Award in the Best Group category. In December 2006, iTunes released the complete Depeche Mode as its 4th ever digital box set. In August 2007, during promotion for Dave Gahan's second solo album Hourglass, it was announced that Depeche Mode were heading back in studio in early 2008 to work on a new album. Sounds of the Universe, 2008-2011. In May 2008, the band returned to the studio with producer Ben Hillier to work on some songs that Martin Gore had demoed at his home studio in Santa Barbara, California. Later that year, it was announced that Depeche Mode were splitting from the long-term US label Warner Music and signing with EMI Music Worldwide. The album was created in 4 sessions, 2 in New York and 2 in Santa Barbara. A total of 22 songs were recorded, with the standard album being 13 songs in length, while many of the others were released in subsequent deluxe editions. On the 15th of January 2009, the official Depeche Mode website announced that the band's 12th studio album would be called Sounds of the Universe. The album was released in April 2009, also made available through an iTunes Pass, where the buyer received individual tracks in the weeks leading up to official release date. Andy Fletcher says the idea for their iTunes Pass was a combination of the band's and iTunes. I think the digital and record companies are starting to get their act together. They were very lazy in the first 10 years when downloads came in. Now they're collaborating more, and coming up with interesting ideas for fans to buy products. The album went to #1 in 21 countries. Critical response was generally positive, and it was nominated for a Grammy in the Best Alternative Album category. Wrong was the first single from the album, released digitally in February 2009. Subsequent singles were Peace and the double A-side, Fragile Tension, Halt to Feed. In addition, Perfect was released as a promotional-only single in the United States. On the 23rd of April 2009, Depeche Mode performed for the television program Jimmy Kimmel Live at the famed corner of Hollywood Boulevard and Vine Street, drawing more than 12,000 fans, which was the largest audience the program had seen since its 2003 premiere with a performance by Coldplay. In May 2009, the band embarked on a concert tour in support of the album, called Tour of the Universe. It had been announced at a press conference in October 2008 at the Olympiastadion in Berlin. There was a warm-up show in Luxembourg, and it officially started on the 10th of May 2009 in Tel Aviv. The first leg of the tour was disrupted when Dave Gahan was struck down with gastroenteritis. During treatment, doctors found and removed a low-grade tumor from the singer's bladder. Gahan's illness caused 16 concerts to be cancelled, but several of the shows were rescheduled for 2010. The band headlined the Lollapalooza Festival during the North American leg of the tour. The tour also took the band back to South America for the first time since 1994's Exotic Tour. During the final European leg, the band played a show at London's Royal Albert Hall in aid of the Teenage Cancer Trust, where former member Alan Wilder joined Martin Gore on stage for a performance of Somebody. In total, the band played to more than 2.7 million people across 32 countries, and the tour was one of the most profitable in America in 2009. The concerts held at Palau Sant Jordi, Barcelona, Spain were filmed and later released on DVD and Blu-ray disc release entitled Tour of the Universe, Barcelona 2020 1.11.09. In March 2010, Depeche Mode won the award for Best International Group Rock, Pop at the Echo Awards in Germany. On 6 June 2011, as the final commitment to their contract with EMI, the band released a remix compilation album entitled Remixes 2-8111 that features remixes by former members Vince Clarke and Alan Wilder. Other remixes involved with the project were Nick Rhodes of Duran Duran, Roy Carlson, Eric Prydz Clarke and more. A new remix of Personal Jesus by Stargate entitled Personal Jesus 2011 was released as a single on 30 May 2011 in support of the compilation. Depeche Mode contributed their cover of the U2 song So Cruel to the tribute album AHK Tung Baby, covered honoring the 20th anniversary of Achtung Baby, a 1991 album by U2. The compilation CD was released with a December 2011 issue of Q magazine. Delta Machine 2012-2014. In October 2012, during a press conference in Paris, Dave Gahan, Martin Gore, and Andy Fletcher announced plans for a new album and a 2013 worldwide tour starting from Tel Aviv and continuing in Europe and North America. Martin Gore revealed that Flood mixed the album, marking the producer's first studio collaboration with the band since 1993's Songs of Faith and Devotion. In December 2012, the band officially announced signing a worldwide deal with Columbia Records and releasing a new album in March 2013. On 24 January 2013, it was confirmed that the album was titled Delta Machine. Heaven, the debut single from Delta Machine, was released commercially on Friday, 1 February 2013. The release date in the UK was pushed back to 18 March 2013. The physical release still bore the Mute Records logo, even though the band have now severed ties with the long-standing label. Andy Fletcher mentioned in an interview this was due to their devotion to the label and with the band's insistence. In March, the band announced North American dates to its Delta Machine Summer Tour starting the 22nd of August from Detroit and ending the 8th of October in Phoenix. In June, other European dates were confirmed. For early 2014, the final gig of Delta Machine Tour took place in Moscow on 7 March 2014 at Olympusky venue. That month, Depeche Mode won the award for Best International Group Rock, Pop at the Echo Awards in Germany. Also, they were nominated at the category Album des Jahres for Delta Machine, but lost against Helen Fischer's Farbenspiel. On 8 October 2014, the band announced Depeche Mode Live in Berlin, the new video and audio release filmed and recorded at the O2 World in Berlin, Germany in November 2013 during the Delta Machine Tour. It was released on 17 November 2014 worldwide. Spirit 2016 present. On 25 January 2016, Martin Gore announced a projected return to the recording studio in April, with both Gore and Gahan having already written and demoed new songs. In September, the official Depeche Mode Facebook page hinted at a new release, later confirmed by the band to be a music video compilation video singles collection scheduled for release in November by Sony. In October 2016, the band announced that their 14th album, titled Spirit and produced by James Ford, would be released in spring 2017. The group has also been nominated for the 2018 Rock was released 3 February 2017 along with its lyric video. The official video was published a week later on 9 February. The Global Spirit Tour officially kicked off on 5 May 2017 with a performance in Stockholm, Sweden, at the Friends Arena. The first leg of the tour covered European countries only, ending with a final stadium show in Cluj-Napoca, Romania at the Cluj Arena. The second leg of the tour will cover North America and then return to Europe. The North America leg of the tour kicked off in Salt Lake City, Utah on the 23rd of August at the USANA Amphitheater. The band will remain in North America until the 15th of November, when they leave for Dublin and resume the European leg. The band will end the tour in South America with a final show on the 27th of March 2018 in São Paulo, Brazil at the Allianz Parque. Artistry. Depeche Mode drew its artistic influences from a wide range of artists and scenes, such as Kraftwerk, David Bowie, The Clash, Roxy Music and Brian Eno, Elvis Presley, The Velvet Underground and blues. Depeche Mode's music has mainly been described as synth-pop, new wave, electronic rock, dance rock and alternative rock. The band also experimented with various other genres throughout its career, including avant-garde, electronica, pop, soul, techno, industrial rock and heavy metal. In their early years, Depeche Mode were considered teen idols, and regularly featured on front covers of magazines such as Smash Hits. Following the departure of Vince Clarke, their music began to take on a darker and a gothic tone as Martin Gore assumed lead songwriting duties. Gore's lyrical artistry has been recognized as encapsulating themes such as sex, religion, and politics, so much so that many labeled the band's lyrical and musical themes as dark and bleak. In response, Gore has stated he feels lyrical themes which tackle issues related to solitude and loneliness present more of a realistic character and are a better representation of reality, whereas he finds happy songs fake and unrealistic. I've never seen our music as being over dark. I think that there is always an element of hope in our music. Legacy. One of the most successful bands over the past 4 decades, Depeche Mode have released a total of 14 studio albums, 10 compilation albums, 6 live albums, 8 box sets, 13 video albums, 71 music videos and 54 singles. The band have sold over 100 million records worldwide. Depeche Mode have had 50 songs in the UK singles chart, and 1 US and 2 UK #1 albums. The band's albums Songs of Faith and Devotion hit #1 in the UK and US simultaneously, making them one of only 11 UK acts to do so. In addition, all of their studio albums have reached the UK top 10 and their albums have spent over 210 weeks on the UK charts. Music critic Sasha Frere-Jones claimed that the last serious English influence was Depeche Mode, who seem more and more significant as time passes. Depeche Mode have been nominated for 5 Grammy Awards. Devotional for Best Long-Form Music Video, I Feel Loved and Suffer Well both for Best Dance Recording, Sounds of the Universe for Best Alternative Album and Wrong for Best Short-Form Music Video. In addition, Depeche Mode have been honored with a Brit Award for Enjoy the Silence in the Best British Single category, the first ever Q Magazine Innovation Award and an Ivor Novello Award for Martin Gore in the category of International Achievement. Depeche Mode are frequently praised by the music press. They became the most popular electronic band the world has ever known, according to Q Magazine, one of the greatest British pop groups of all time according to the Sunday Telegraph, and the quintessential 80s techno-pop band according to Rolling Stone and AllMusic. Depeche Mode were ranked number 2 on Electronic Music Realm's list of the 100 greatest artists of electronic music, ranked number 158 on Acclaimed Music's list of top 1,000 artists of all time. and Q magazine included them on the list of 50 bands that changed the world. Charity work. Depeche Mode have applied their celebrity and cultural longevity to help promote and raise funds for several notable charity endeavors. They lent their support to high-profile charities such as Music Airs Cancer Research UK and the Teenage Cancer Trust. The band has also supported the Small Steps Project, a humanitarian organisation based in the United Kingdom aiming to assist economically disadvantaged children into education. Since 2010, Depeche Mode have partnered with Swiss watchmaker Hublot to support charity water aimed at the provision of clean drinking water in developing countries. In 2014, the partnership hosted a gala and fundraiser at the TSUM building in Moscow, raising $1.4 million for the charity. Brought to you by WikiVidi.com. Would you like to know more?